if we. Stuff.
Ready when you are.
We gotta carry.
Call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Back. Let's see. Okay. All right. So our last meeting was December 2nd. We had old business with Starkdale Farm. They are they're just waiting for a response from the zoning update committee. And then we had Wingdale Solar that came back. We set a site walk for that, and Engineer Berger, Member Palmer, and I attended the site walk. Didn't access the site, but we were able to talk with the engineer for a bit and helped him understand what we were thinking. Things. It's still useful.
I think it was useful.
Yeah.
He was unaware of the concerns we had.
Yeah. But yeah, there was a lot there. Yeah, and then under new business, we started looking at the 1965 Route 22 Diggs Wingdale Yard project. Raised the escrow, and then we reappointed secretary and the consultants, and we again went over the meeting schedule for this year, and then we adjourned the meeting. A motion to accept the minutes. Motion made by
So moved.
Member Palmer, seconded by
Second.
Member Sador. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Okay, motion passes 6-0 with one absence. Now we'll move on to some old business. 3186 Route 22 restaurant.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. What would you like me to pull up?
So we did make some changes to our application since we were last here. I guess the highlights of those would be we removed the parking in the front yard. So now we have just the bare minimal parking for the restaurant, along with a small overflow just beyond that, just in case. We showed the more clearly with the better survey the septic location and the grease trap location. We identified trees along the rear of the property line, and we had our engineer look at the septic, and he's been working with Department of Health for our existing fields and proposed expansion. We were advised by our engineer that in conversations with Department of Health's engineer that we would be permitted to park over a system such as the one we have. However, we're not opting to bring the parking that far back into the lot. Again, my concern is for the neighboring properties in the back, and I want to kind of insulate them or isolate them as much as possible to, late night noises when they want to relax.
Right.
So the parking is sufficient for our intent, and we're hopeful that we should have a approval from the health department for a 60-seat restaurant in the near future.
So that's, that number's down, right?
That number is down. So if you look at just the code requirements of the building, we came up with originally 93,
Yeah,
I believe it was.
I was gonna say 90-something, right? Yeah.
And that triggered having 31 plus cars, and I think we because we had the space, we said, oh, we'll have 40 because not everybody comes in the same car. And then after conversations with the health department, we found that there's a whole new slew of additional regulations that would adversely affect this building.
Oh.
And so what we had originally submitted is essentially what we're trying to still obtain. And based on the original submission, along with the engineer's design, that's all kind of, it was all built
Right.
accordingly. So,
Okay.
it's just going to be a smaller operation.
Okay. So, I mean, a number of us were on the site walk, including inside the building. So what would be, I remember there was, the main entrance is where this little cutout is, right? In the roof?
No, I hear.
Yeah. Oh, over here, right, okay. So there's gonna be there was gonna be a bar off to the left,
Yep.
and then like a counter in front, and then seating. Is that,
It's still similar. It just got a little bit more
less
generous,
of that.
let's
Okay.
just say, for that kind of
Okay.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, so right, the entrance there,
Right.
like a bar kind of here, a counter, and then seating basically in this whole area, right?
Yeah. So there's a plan. You could actually
Okay.
scroll to the plan if you want to just scroll down, and you might be able to see it better. Oh, maybe. Hold on a second. There may not be a plan now that I'm thinking about it.
I don't think there was one.
There isn't a plan. I'm sorry, I apologize,
No worries.
because we're just looking for site plan.
Yeah.
But in fact, that's what it is. And when you come in, there's a hostess stand and a place for people to pay.
Right. I agree.
And there'll be the serving area,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to be like a Chipotle kind of deal.
Right.
So-
And I think you had like a men's room, a women's room, and an employee restroom.
Correct.
And
All
then the-
three are
and-
lumped in the
this
back.
kinda
There's
here.
a
And then-
wash area.
Right. And then this
separate
is basically
from the kitchen.
the kitchen was
Yes.
like that.
Correct.
All right. Okay. So you're down to 20 something? 25. That's okay.
So hence, there's only one ADA spot required then.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. So 14 along the back. On
14.
on the pavers.
Right.
North
5
pavement. 5 behind the building
and,
immediately.
and 6
6 to the north, and one of the 6 is the
ADA.
88 one.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. And then this also helps with the traffic flow. So it's in both directions still here
Correct.
and back in the back.
Correct.
But basically, once you get to here, you're supposed to just kind of keep going this.
Turns to one way. We have a sign there on the top right
Okay.
for one way.
Gotcha.
And essentially was to give the ability for fire apparatus to
Right.
be able just to circle the building, because those things are a bear to
Right.
back up.
I would think it also would help with whenever you have your garbage picked up from here,
Correct.
they can
Yeah.
just leave and not have to worry about customers.
They may come in the opposite way because it'll be off hours.
Sure.
And then be able to
Right.
pick up from those 2 dumpsters.
Right, I guess it would be if they're front loaded or from the
Or
back.
it could be front, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So now there's a massive green lawn in the front with, I mean, that's not the landscaping plan, but still
No.
with shrubbery and stuff. And the survey actually, oddly enough, was different than what we originally had and what was on file here. So it was actually helpful to have that done.
Okay. Let's see, the fencing.
Oh, and about the trees in the back, we did confer with our engineer and with the health department that they were far enough from the galleys, so we wouldn't have to take those down, which I kind of suffered with because they're just big, mature
Right.
trees.
Yeah, that's good to have. And so the fence is just kind of going to make its way.
Yeah, so the fence would be inside, just inside the property line there.
Right.
And also
And
along
then the fence along the north side.
north side too, to shield the neighbor.
Right.
Where's the signage going to be? On the building?
No, the signage is here in the front lawn area.
Yeah, is there a,
There's some concrete that comes up, and that's where, there is a,
Putting it in the DOT right of way, you're going to do permission from DOT.
so,
How big it was?
If that's
Yeah.
where it is.
Yeah, the box
Is there a
shown
picture?
across
Do we have it?
the property line and into the right of way.
yes, we're,
we'll have to pull it back then onto the property, but, yeah, that's fine.
what page would you,
One second.
That one shows it, the landscaping. The bigger one, when it helps out. And then we can look at the landscape.
restaurant sign, so the restaurant sign is on the property. So existing concrete with electric to remain.
Yeah, I
is-
think we already showed that we were relocating it back.
Well, so this says that that's the restaurant sign.
So this is the sign now relocated onto the property, but the original was
Oh, okay.
half and half. You're right.
You just make sure you don't have the pen.
No, I have it
activated.
backwards, yeah, I
So
wouldn't,
you're
Thank you.
taking one out. It says to remain.
no, there's no sign there, it's just, there
Existing
was
concrete
like
with electric to remain.
concrete that was,
They put the pad in for it.
Like maybe that's where the sign was supposed to
and,
go.
and, you know, I guess
Years
back then, they thought that that was their property,
Okay.
which we,
Bothered to check.
or they didn't buy, right, exactly.
right, yeah.
So that's on T3, that sign is on T3.
Of course.
I'm on T8.
I knew they showed it.
And that will need its own sign permit too, which you've acknowledged, but just want to
Sure.
reiterate for the board.
Yeah, and we have Olson Signs, who's down in Patterson, he's familiar, so.
Actually, I remember, Sidor, you were talking about the blocking the view. I mean, it might be that you could see
Yeah, it depends on how.
under the sign, you know,
Yeah,
if anybody's coming,
Yeah, it's 5 feet under the sign, so.
or close to 5 feet. Right, 4.5 feet.
No, I think 5.
Well, 9 goes to the caps and then, yeah.
Could be.
Okay. I don't have any other comments or questions at this time. Member Sidor, anything else? Member Palmer?
Nothing?
Member Williams? Member Ramon?
No.
Member Villano?
Nope.
Okay. Who'd like to go first?
We talked procedurally. This was referred out to county planning after you resubmitted it, so we're still waiting for a response. We have to wait 30 days,
Okay.
so the board has to wait until the next meeting before it can take any action. We do need to set a public hearing still on the application, something you can consider tonight. And we did get a response from J.H. Ketchum Hose Company.
Which I wanted to ask, did they see this latest plan? Do you know?
I mean, we brought it here. I'm not sure if it,
Did who see it?
the fire company.
It wasn't
Yeah,
a response
everything
to
was
this
sent out the same day to J.H. Ketchum and everybody else that was on the interested party list.
I just wanted to make sure, because they looked like they still had comments about turning radius, which I wanted to point out at first.
I think they might have been comments that they originally had, and they were just kind of left over. So unless, I don't know. I mean, that happens a lot. Even the comments about the water and,
Yeah, the water company, I think we understand that's more comments for the water company than for you, but,
and the Knox box is
First.
on our drawings. We show the Knox box by the entrance, you know.
So the fire company's, so number 3 says, the fire company has provided the applicant with the length and wheelbase of fire apparatus for turning radius calculations. And then prior to that, they said maneuverability of turning radius radius appear to be obstructed for fire apparatus access due to the amount of proposed parking. Let's go back
You
to-
put the turning radius on your plan?
Yeah, they're there.
Is it on,
So I'm looking for it on this plan. It might be on another plan. There might be a specific plan just for the
Yeah.
fire company.
T7, page T7?
B7?
Yep.
That's T2. It had the sign. There we go. Yeah, so it's 28 feet.
Of just a little, yeah. Keep going up.
So 28 feet.
It's 28 feet at all turns. There's none that are less than that.
And then the picture to the right has the fire trucks on it as well, or the layout to the right has the fire trucks.
When,
They're going the wrong way.
yeah. Well, the last one is.
Member Romano? Question?
No, I was just looking at when the fire trucks are exiting, is that also the same radius coming out to the street?
So not here. But this one is.
That one, that's the same radius?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That other one is just because that's all we have left of property
Okay.
to make it work, because the building is where it is.
All right, so what you're saying is, based on what they sent you, you've made a determination that this 28-foot radius is the appropriate?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I forgot who we were.
Oh, I was finished.
Oh, yes.
recording.
Oh, you're,
You're done?
okay.
Okay. The lighting plan was updated, so that is good to go now, meeting the foot candles at the property line. Like you stated, the parking was removed out of the front, so that solved one of the issues we had, and it still meets the bulk and area requirements with the impervious surface at 48%, so just under the required 50. The landscaping plan that we asked for was provided with the shade trees for the parking. Really, the only thing that I think was outstanding from AKRF was just the trip calculations.
I think they're on there. They're on a,
Yes, they were on there, but you multiplied them, and what we gave you had already been calculated. So if you just copy exactly what we gave you onto the plan, it'll be good to go.
Which comment?
The traffic calculations, comment, the last one.
You gave the total number, you used the number as per thousand, so you made it bigger
Yeah.
based on the numbers, 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
Typically, people list it as 30 per thousand. AKRF did the total calculation for the entire building. So unfortunately, it happens. It's not uncommon, especially
Yeah.
when, as architects and engineer, we're used to be given numbers of 30 per thousand, so they do the calculation.
Yep,
It's an
just a
easy
small
thing.
tweak.
It's been done. Unfortunately, I've done that, so I can understand that.
Yep, and
Thank you.
I'm sure there's a rational explanation for more cars entering than leaving.
I could ask a traffic engineer that question.
ITE always does that. It doesn't, never adds the same. It's
Okay.
just an average base.
Just some cars left over.
It's-
California restaurant.
well, it's a
Well,
peak
some
hou-
people have a
no,
quick
it's a
meal
peak
and some
hour.
like to
It's a
linger.
peak
I guess
hour
so,
too,
sure.
So it's not based on,
Hey, they stay a little later.
some
Exactly.
people come and
Mojito.
they go out later in the time.
Or 2 or 3 or 4.
It accounts for.
So weekday,
workers.
so weekday daily trips, 371 is what you're saying is.
Yeah, all these numbers are already calculated for the 3,455
So
foot
it's
square
about a
foot
third of
building.
it. Yeah.
Well, I guess they were figuring that people would be arriving at peak hour, but not exiting at peak hour.
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
Because of statistics. That's the real reason.
And just remind, I think this came up in some part of the discussion. Is it going to be breakfast, lunch, dinner, or just lunch, dinner?
So I believe it's going to be breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Okay.
Until they
Not
get,
that you had a traffic problem anyway, but if you didn't have breakfast, then there is no AM peak hours.
That's true.
Okay. All right, so anything further for Make KRF? then?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Engineer Berger?
They did a nice job on their SWIP and the drawing, but we have a Chapter 65 in our town, which is separate.
Right.
And there's a list of things within the Chapter 65 that need to be shown or waivers requested. So I don't think we need to go through them. I've listed in my memo, basically, the items listed on there, either some don't need to be there, but then there has to be a written request from the planning board to waive those other requirements, and or need to be provided.
Okay.
So I'm not saying you have to provide them. If you feel you don't need them, you just have to ask for a waiver of the board, and the board will consider whether they're needed or not. Also, there still should be a written evaluation for the storm sewer system. I know it's gravel out there, but the code does require a calculation to show that the stormwater, especially in that area, is being handled properly for the storm events that you need that for the SWIP anyway. So we need a rudimental drainage calculation to show that the dry wells will work and that the stormwater will be directed to them and that they'll function properly. And that's part of the Chapter 65 requirements. I do note on there that the pavers are shown on top of the future expansion, and that's a health department concern.
Right.
The only reason I point that out is if the health department rejects it, that will be then increase the amount of impervious on the site.
Right.
And
Just looking at this now, I just had, I mean, it's one of those things like it's technically over the asphalt? Or it's
no, it's
technically
the
under
pavers are
asphalt?
right on top of it. The
Right.
hatched in is paving. Now,
the X.
again, that's a health department. They can waive it if they choose to.
Right.
But that's a stormwater practice, and in their own guidelines, it's a 50-foot separation from a stormwater practice to a OWTS, which is an on-site wastewater treatment system. This happens to be on top of it, so it doesn't have the 50-foot separation.
Well,
But again, they have waivers provisions too. I'm not gonna, it's not for me to do anything other than to the board point out that it's there, and that it would require health department approval to be allowed, and that's up to them to make that decision whether they choose to, and it's up to the architect to make that point with the health department.
Mr. Fernandez, you-
So we have spoken to the health department about that issue, and they are going to be fine with that, and that's going to be part of their approval process.
Okay.
But secondly, our stormwater is shown more than 50 feet from that
No,
area.
that is a stormwater practice. Pavers that drain water
Pavers
into
is
the
a stormwater
ground
practice.
is a stormwater practice. You're infiltrating water into the ground. It's possible they're not quite understanding it, but porous pavement takes water through the pavement and drains it into the ground.
Right. You're saying, so it potentially could be a problem if the septic has to be relocated to the expansion area in the future?
Or if they have to make that, a paving is allowed over top, but paving is not porous. It
Right.
drains it away.
Right.
The purpose of porous is to drain it into the ground, which
Sure.
drains it into the septic system.
So, it sounds like applicant is proceeding at their own risk
It's just,
with the current layout.
Or that you have some assurance from the
Yeah,
Department of Health
I,
that it's okay?
I'm fine. It's okay.
I just wanted to point that out to
Yeah.
the board.
Alright.
That would probably require a waiver from the health department, which we would.
Prior to approval or as
Yeah.
a condition of approval?
Prior to approval, it's a waiver gets put in there before health department issues an approval, they'll be issuing most likely either a determination that's not going to affect it or a waiver, but that's up to them to make that determination,
I
not
just,
me.
that's not like a catch-22 thing, though, is it? Where they'll be like, well, we want to see your plan, and like, well, we can't approve the plan until you give us the waiver, and we'll say, well, we want to,
Well,
and then this,
we have to do seeker
right,
before they'll do an approval, but our condition of approval will always be health department approval.
Right.
right.
So if the health department says no, they're going to be coming back to us anyway.
Right, but what I'm saying is they don't need to see an approved project to then go forward and say, oh, well, here's your waiver now.
No, waiver has nothing to do with it's a waiver of their regulations.
Okay.
And
It's an
they'll,
internal.
but they need seeker before they'll issue the waiver.
They need seeker before they give any approval, which is including accepting the waiver.
Okay. So, long story short, if the Department of Health does not approve, they will need to pave that, in which case they'll need an area variance because they're going to be exceeding the coverage.
Yeah, I just wanted
requirements.
to point that out. If it wasn't for the 48% impervious,
Right.
I would make a very small note of it. I just wanted it so that it's not this board
Right.
kicking them back to a curve.
And Attorney Polidoro, if that happens, that's a waiver they'd have to go to the ZBA for the area variance, or is that something that
I
planning board can
believe it's an
handle?
area variance.
Okay.
Or they would have to move the porous paving to another location.
We could, if worse came to worse, eliminate the travel lane along the south side of the building. It's not required by code.
Or make that porous.
That was porous before.
Yeah, it was.
It was porous
Yeah.
before,
Right.
but we
Paper
wanted,
before.
we wanted a hard surface for the
Sure.
fire company to be
Yeah, you
able
get
to
the fire
roll
company, you get
over.
the garbage trucks, sure, heavy
Sure.
stuff. That makes sense.
But if we, as opposed to going to zoning for a variance for that,
Right. Well, and we were just saying if this and then
Right.
if that, then.
understood,
Yeah, it's
understood.
not like I don't think it's anticipated, it's just.
If you've already spoke with the health department, it's less, it's fine.
That's what I'm being told,
Okay,
so.
yeah. All right, Engineer Berger, anything
That's it.
further?
That's all.
Okay.
I don't think the drainage calculation should hold up seeker. I'll put that could be for final.
Right.
Because it is gravel, I know the area well. It's just a matter of them doing the calculations for the record.
Right, and like
So-
we just stated, it was, the porous area was on the south side before, so
Yes.
they could just move it later if they
So-
had to.
I'm not going to recommend it.
Right.
I don't need to see any drainage calculations in order for seeker to proceed. That could be
Right.
as a condition of final or as we get toward final so that you don't hold up the project for that.
Okay, great, thank you. As the planning board, having heard from our consultants, any further comments, questions at this time? No? Okay. All right. Okay, so we had discussed then setting public hearings. Mr. Fernandez, is there anything else you wanted to go over or state or?
No, I think we've covered it. I think it's gotten a lot more compact, but it's good.
Right, okay.
There's only one meeting in January, so the next meeting is
It's
February 3rd.
Okay,
And that'll work out because we'll get the comments back from the county, hopefully.
right, because they were sent out a week ago?
December 24th.
More than a week ago. So the 30 days started, right, okay. So they have till January 23rd, 20 something? Okay. Okay, so I'll make a motion to set a public hearing for Monday, February 3rd at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter, as is possible, for 3186 Route 22 restaurant project. Seconded by
Second.
Member Palmer. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. The motion passes 6-0 with one absence. So we'll see you February 3rd.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Okay.
Joe? I have
Oh,
a
yeah,
sign.
she has a sign.
Oh, okay. Just have a date on it.
It is.
All right, so then just the other thing on the agenda, I was talking with consultants and our secretary at the pre-agenda meeting last week, just that it might be helpful just to point out just other projects that have come before us recently and just, you know, kind of where are they. So, right, so we had the Wenglowski subdivision that was up on Southeast Mountain Road. We just haven't received anything back from them, so it's just kind of out there in limbo right now, I believe. Okay. Stony Brook has not been before us for quite some time. I know that the code enforcement officer has been out there based on a resident concern. But we haven't heard back from them. So as of right now, they have no planning board approvals. There's nothing for the planning board to do until they come back. Is that correct, Attorney Baldero?
Yes, we discussed sending them a letter saying that we're going to consider the project abandoned if we don't
Right.
hear from them.
Right. Yeah, right, because it was Friday, and we said, right, I mean, it just seems, yeah, right, that's right. It came up on Friday about a letter, and I said, well, you know, if we send them a letter, they're going to get it today. I mean, maybe they'll get it
Right.
today. So
I
yeah.
didn't send it out
Right,
yet
right, yeah.
because I gave it to her.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it makes sense to send out a letter, but
Yes.
I think a reasonable time frame would be at least just let us know before the next meeting. I mean, you know, even, they wouldn't make like a deadline per se, but just kind of like to let us know, like, oh, we're still looking to do something. I mean, you know. And then,
I was suggesting if they want to continue, they actually come to the next meeting and give us an update in person.
right, they could say, yeah, I mean, they could, yeah, if they just, that could be maybe part of the letter too, just let the secretary know we'll, you know, we'd like to come to the meeting, just talk for 5-10 minutes about this is what we're still thinking about.
Mhm.
I mean, that'd be fine. Just haven't submitted, I mean, I guess you could just go on, they submitted stuff a long time ago and, okay, they met the deadline. But yeah, I mean, so the other concern was that the public hearing had been continued and then just,
We
it wasn't adjourned, but it was
indefinitely.
continued indefinitely, meaning just,
I think we actually used the word adjourned, so like we
do we
sort
use it?
of-
Okay, I wasn't sure, I
Oh,
know
I
we're
have to
trying
go
to look
back
through the
to the
minutes. Yeah, but, yeah, I mean, at this point, we'd have to start a new public hearing and,
We would renotice, we'd have
We'd
to
have to
renotice
renotice all
it,
that.
start a new hearing,
Yeah.
yes.
okay. So that's Stony Brook. Starkdale, so the zoning update committee is supposed to meet sometime next week?
15th.
Right. And so they might have something coming out of that, or they may look to meet with the applicant after that.
They will probably meet with the applicant in February.
All right. And you were informing us before the meeting started that they're before the Pauling Planning Board
They'll
tonight?
be, they're in front of the Pauling Planning Board this evening.
Okay. Okay. So maybe we'll hear something.
Do you know what
From
purpose
that.
they're there? For what purpose?
They just say that they're there, nothing.
All right. And again, we being the planning board secretary and I and the planning board secretary, chair, and vice chair met in, is that October or November? October or November.
October.
And then we were going to meet with them last month, but there was really nothing to meet about. So maybe based on them meeting with Starkdale tonight, maybe we're going to meet sometime this month. So if that's to happen, we'll let members of the planning board know, we can have obviously one or two other
Yep,
planning
sure.
board members there if you'd like to be there. It works out. So, all right, moving on to Wingdale Solar. Like we said, we tried to have a site walk, but so we're just kind of waiting for them to.
I received a phone call from them today asking for a application for the zoning board of appeals.
Okay.
Their attorney has reached out to me and to the town
Town
attorney
right.
to discuss the issue of the area variance.
Right.
So I
That
think-
right. That the law isn't within Chapter 145, but it references zoning. So, okay. Okay. So, and they would need really the area variance for acreage, and then the setback of the,
Beyond what the
Beyond
planning
what
board
they-
can
right.
grant.
because the law is 300 feet. The planning board can do up to 25%, which would push it back to 225 feet. But a lot of their stuff was like 150, 160
Yeah.
feet, right? So yeah, they were looking to really go beyond that, so. Okay. So, waiting to see what happens there. Double JK. I know there has been some, just emails, discussions about
Nothing.
something, but nothing's actually been submitted, right? Okay. All right, and then we just recently had the Diggs project before us, and we were waiting for them to tell us when they could have a site walk between the last meeting and today, and somehow that got misinterpreted at some point, that there was going to be a site walk today.
Today sometime.
That was never agreed upon, so. I guess we're still waiting to hear from them as to when they would be up for a site walk, so. And then, I guess they'll be back, so. Are there any other projects that anyone is curious about, or?
Is there anything new happening with Harlem Philly Homestead?
Well, so, it's possible that all the boxes have been checked on that. Attorney Polidoro is going to look that over just to make sure. And then if that's the case, then, the planning board in the approving resolution authorized me to, sign everything once all those boxes are checked off. So that might be done,
This week?
this week.
They said they submitted a pile of documents today
Okay.
showing that they recorded the easements and the road widening agreement and some of those
Oh,
things.
right,
So
and you were
just need to
saying
confirm
that
they
they
were-
offered to send a lot of stuff that we don't need.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Everything that goes into the file.
right.
And one of the
6,800 and something pages.
Right. One of the hangups for the easement was they have something that they own in the right of way, and they just needed to know if that was okay or
One
not.
of the hangups
Right.
was that the road right-of-way actually has a building in it. So
That's what you want.
we're trying to come up with appropriate language. I was always concerned that if, the highway super was plowing
He might plow the building.
or cause damage, push
Sure.
snow against it, which will cause damage, and we don't want to, we want to protect the town
Sure.
from
Right.
that. So we
Makes sense.
worked on that language for a little bit.
That took a while. But, so possibly we're all set there.
Okay.
Any other projects anyone's thinking of, wondering about? Okay. Okay, so then we're going to have the public hearing on February 3rd. The deadline for the February 3rd meeting is January 15th. And then and we haven't had anything come in
No.
for something, okay, yeah. And then, so another 9 days there. And then the next meeting's March 3rd. Deadline for that is February 12th, so. Any other business before the planning board? Okay. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Seconded by Member Williams. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
I-
Aye. We're adjourned.